Greetings to everyone joining us around the world, and welcome to the November 21st, 2019 IEEE Computer Society's webinar, Managing Upwards, The Power of Influencers, provided by Elsa Velasco Paul. This webinar will provide the strategies for acquiring buy-in from those above you in the organization and tools for the effective communication. You will also learn the fundamentals of influencing, obtain clear examples of upwards management, identify the type of manager you have, and pinpoint the skills needed to maintain an effective, productive working relationship with your bosses. This webinar will be recorded and emailed to all attendees in a few days. There will be a Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A area. Elsa Velasco Paul is the founder and creator of the M&E Group, a marketing and consulting firm based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that has served a wide range of industries, including consumer retail, oil and gas, industrial, construction, and nonprofits since 1997. She consults, analyzes, and implements strategies that help businesses improve processes to increase clients, sales, and revenue. She often lectures in person, giving a hands-on approach to corporate strategic initiatives that require jumpstart implementation. Elsa's past and current clients and audience members include ExxonMobil SEP programs, Chevron SLS programs, AAPG and SEG ICE, IGCE, CES, and multiple educational and corporate entities in Oklahoma. In addition to co-founding the M&E Group, Elsa serves as the International CX Manager for the global company, the Crosby Group. Her clients include global Fortune 500 companies in the energy, forestry, agriculture, heavy construction, and materials holding space. Elsa travels as a consultant to many companies' locations, advising on how to accelerate and elevate to their next level. She trains corporations in person and in webinar format on many different subjects, such as persuasive communication, design thinking, branding, leadership, and continuous improvement processes. In her free time, Elsa enjoys an active lifestyle, including fitness and outdoor activities. She enjoys reading, puzzles, a great cup of coffee, and all things Doctor Who. And with that, Elsa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. As you might have seen, I have a very strong heart for my professional societies. I think what you do is amazing, and I love the commitment that you have. As you know, I am Elsa here from the M&E Group, and today we're going to do the behind-the-scenes scoop on how to manage up, or the power of upwards influencers. Now, let's start with a handshake. Let's call it that way, a promise. My promise is I'm going to make this session chock full of applicable, life-changing content. For you to accept my promise or to shake my hand, you need to commit to joining in the activities that we're going to have all around this time. These exercises are going to help you have a working plan of action that is going to be tailored to your unique needs. And yes, we also have some giveaways that we're going to be giving around during this session. One of them is going to be an optimized resume analysis to ensure that your market employability goes way, way up. The second one of my favorites, is the personalized body language video in coaching. We will do a quick snip of how you act and how you behave outside in the world, and then we're going to tell you what your body is screaming, even if you don't want it to. And then the third one is going to be a resume clarification of brand optimization. This is going to give you a good idea of where we can improve and where we can make sure that your resume goes way to the top. Thank you again. Thank you so much for the generosity of support of the fantastic IEEE Computer Society. Thank you, Eric, Scott, and Carrie. And of course, a shout out to our wonderful support team. Thank you, Mike. Everybody ready? Let's go. So some of you might know this. I am an attorney by training, so some habits never die. This presentation is intended for educational purposes. Content of this presentation are under pressure and may or may not be ours. Shake well before using. Batteries not included. Void where prohibited. Use only as directed. Side effects of this presentation may include promotions, better chairs, itching, redness, and occasional fainting. If conditionals persist, please consult your physician. Do not reproduce without express content. Drink your water, exercise regularly, and call your mother. Reading this presentation does not constitute legal advice. Should you seek legal advice, seek legal advice. So, as you might have seen, we work with a lot of humor, and this message is just very simple. All we want you guys to know is if you need to replicate, reproduce, or use this material in any way or fashion, give us a call or contact us through LinkedIn. We will absolutely work with you to make sure that you can use it in the best way possible. Now, what are we going to do today? First of all, I wanted to do a quick poll to understand what is the landscape. Carrie, could you help us with that one? Let's see, what do we have around here in the team? How many people do we have that are students? How many people do we have that are directors? Do we have any people in the managing area? How about some of my C-suite folks? Entry level, you graduated this last fall and you're ready to roll. How about my team leads, the folks who really make it happen and work 24/7? So let's give you guys a couple of seconds to click, and that way we're going to find out who do we have in the audience. Carrie, is this a good time? I'm pretty sure that you can see the results. Can we see who we have in the audience? Awesome. Wonderful. Oh, great job, my PhD candidates. Hello, guys. Keep on trucking. You're going to make it. Entry level. Yes, this session is for you. My team leads, my heart always goes out to you. Oh, I love this. You know, let's give a kudos to you guys. It's very important what we have at the top and down at the bottom. Look at that. We have supervisors and team leads. That's fantastic. But even better news is that we have folks from the managerial and the director and C-suite. You know what that means? We means that we have people invested in how to be the very best lead that they can be. So great round of applause for you guys. This tells me where we want to go with the presentation, and we will tailor it accordingly. Thank you, Carrie. Now, let's go back to our screens. And what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about, number one, the fundamentals, the essential components, and the characteristics of managing up. We call this setting the landscape. The second one is we need to understand, once we know the components and how this functions and what is the basis for all this, how do we communicate? Because at the basis of anything that we want to function well, we need to understand how do we communicate so that we make this a seamless process and avoid having frustrated sequences happening all the time. We're also going to examine the different types of bosses and their characteristics. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to optimize this same process. So let's talk about this one. Hang on just one second. Carrie, could you help us to get the slides up? Okay, can you see them now? Carrie, on the chat, can you let me know if you can see them? Okay, I will keep on trucking because I don't want to waste your time. So Once we understand what the communication styles and we have a seamless process to communicate better, faster, and much more efficient and chunk out the frustrations of what he said and what she understood, we are going to dive into the different types of bosses, their characteristics, and bring down this communication style. Some of this material, you've heard about it before. We're going to talk about the DISC model, but we're also going to talk about Goldman's fantastic leadership model. Then we're going to talk about one of my favorites, because this is where it gets really into the detail. We're going to talk about challenging bosses and what's the best plan of action so this relationship can really get better. Here, we're going to start talking about your case. What is your boss like? And exactly what are those challenges that you have been going through? Afterwards, we're going to outline the step in a managing up example so you know that by the time we go to the last one, drafting your personal plan of action, you know exactly not only how to draft it, but you will leave this session with a very good design of how you can approach the relationship that you have with your supervisors right now. So let's roll. And on this one, we have one of the biggest questions is how and why. The way that we organize our webinars and our workshop experiences is very key. Number one, I want you folks to understand why you're here. Or the best question, why are we talking about managing up? Well, let me give you some data. Gallup reported in a world-famous study probably like 3 years ago that only 30% of U.S. employees are engaged at work. Worse, over the 12 years, this low number has barely budged, meaning that the vast majority of employees are failing to grow and contribute at work. Why is this happening? Well, according to Gallup, they're saying that managers account for at least 70% of the variance in employee engagement scores across different business units. This included some nonprofits too. When managers or leaders have both the talent and the proper development, teams and individuals win customers. Think about this. We spend at least a third of our day at work, right? Let's take 8 hours a day for a standard job. And considering that the global average lifespan is at 71 years, we're talking about 24 years that you spent at work. Here's where the news flash comes. If your job is not challenging, if it's not interesting, or something you look forward to, this is the right time to talk. There's a potential that unless we do something right now, you could spend a third of your life, 24 years of your life, in misery. Life is too valuable. It's too short for us to spend 24 years in that stage. We can't control most of the outside circumstances that come to us, or even people's reactions to our interactions, but we can control how we see and react to outside influences. That's what we're going to focus today. What I'm saying is we have the ability to improve dramatically our work-life balance and impact positively our life overall. In this webinar, that's what we're going to show you how. Now, in the managing up situation, the first thing is improving our work-life skill. And this is important because, unfortunately, sometimes we bring our work to home, and that's just not fair. How about we could bring work to home, but it was a great experience, and we enrich our outside life of work. Managing up is a critical component in improving your work-life satisfaction because these skills are absolutely transferable to other areas in your life. The principles we're talking about today apply in any relationship where there's any form of hierarchy. All these are translatable to personal relationships. We're going to talk, for example, about active listening and practice how to change how we see and experience challenging situations. And my favorite, we're going to have the opportunity to influence others by the way we interact and the way we react. Not only can we improve dramatically relationships with our higher-ups, but we also can become the best version of a manager we can be by learning and applying these traits we learned today. We have an opportunity to change outcomes, becoming the champions of the next wave. Bottom line, in this session, we're going to focus a lot on the other side of the camera, not so much on us. This is about an optics shift. We're going to see things from the boss's perspective. And while doing your job well is absolutely necessary, we're also going to teach you how to increase dramatically your success rate with regards to the power of influencing. To do so, we have to be very, very comfortable with not being at the limelight, but letting others shine. We call this followership, and we're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Now, let's discuss. We learned why. Let's talk about what. Well, what is managing up? Pretty simple. Managing up is an idea about collaboration in partnership with somebody who is in a position of authority to get an outcome that is going to influence a lot of people. Most times people think of managing up as a notion of an incompetent manager or a very difficult person with whom you can't stand to work. Sure, that can be the case, but sometimes you just have a fantastic person that you work for that is just not available, or a person who's just too busy, or a remote person. They're always micromanaging, for example, or they're ones that are giving you bad feedback or forcing you over time. That is a different dynamic than when you have a good boss that is just overflowed. At its core, managing up isn't about trying to fix a bad manager or manipulating somebody into doing what you want. Very important. Managing up is about using the traits of a good manager to help bring out the best in us as an employee. When we do this accordingly and when we do it effectively, managing up makes your manager's job easy as well as your to-do job, because now you're both flowing. The managing up plan involves a set of tactics and actions that link each other and leverage on each one from the previous components in the process. This means it has to be sustainable, and to be sustainable, it's better when it bounces up from the previous steps. You can do something that is outside of it, but then the chances that it will live are very short-lived. And then when we were talking about the differences in a managing up situation versus a not positive situation, they're very, very different. We're going to talk about difficult bosses, but in the tips section, you're going to learn how you can improve today, leaving this session, the relationship that you have with your bosses or even with your partner. Now, let's talk about what managing up is not about. Well, the first one, managing up is not about sucking up. No brown-nosing here. I'm a boss of a very big team, and I can tell you, I know when that is happening. And do you know why? Because when you give a positive compliment, it has to be about the other person feeling congratulated. When I am sucking up to somebody, it's because I want something in return. And as a boss or as a supervisor, I know exactly what's happening. The other thing is not about being safe and feeling in an ambience where you're part of a clan or a group, and therefore nothing can happen to you. We know that the industries go up and down, so you might be tempted to think, if I apply these strategies, I'll be part of the club. It doesn't work that way. Some of the key things that we want to make sure that we try to fix is, number one, the premise for this is we're working with normal, good people. Therefore, you're not working for Dr. Jekyll, but you are not Mr. Hyde. And we have to understand that it's not about us. It's about the people that are around us in the process and making sure that everybody wins at the end. So now that we know this, we know why, we know what it's not. What about the components? Who are these people or these parts that make up what the managing up situation is? Well, it's three, as you might have guessed. We have us, the employee, we have the organization, and number two, and we have the boss. The organization, what does that have to do? A lot, and we're going to talk about it in very little. Here, the key thing about this slide is we need to understand who we are and where we are. That's why we ask that question about what stage in your career are you in? What are your goals? What do you want to do? But also understand, do you have a project? Are you organizing your life in your career the same way that you would do if you were assigned a project? If you take that much time to design a project and follow through for something at work, why aren't you doing that with your personal life? That is way more valuable. So we need to understand where we are. We need to understand if we are organized or if we know where we want to be, what our goals are, but also understand what our traits, our flaws, and what those danger zones are. The danger zones are the pet peeves that trigger points. For example, a long time ago, one of my trigger points was if somebody asked me to do something that I believe was unnecessary. Boom, it would trigger me off, and even if I didn't want to, I would come across as conflictive, as difficult, or simply I would just try to argue that that wasn't needed. When we understand what our trigger points are, we can design a plan so that we have more control and not be in a reactive mode. That's why we want to annotate what stage in our life we are right now. So right now, I'm going to ask you to do your first task. If you have pen and paper or your beloved phone, write down, I want to know, number one, what stage in your career are you in? That's the first question. Are you a student? Are you a manager? Are you part of the C-suite? Are you in a leadership position? Are you a PhD candidate? Number one. The second question is going to be, what is the first personal flaw that comes to mind? What is something that you know you have a challenge? Can you get distracted? Do you have difficulties joining a social environment? Do you have issues with following through with things? Are you the biggest procrastinator? Write that down. You will not share this with anyone, so you're safe. The third one is I want you to think of a strength. And to do this, first thing that comes to mind, I'm social. I can address a big crowd very easily. I like new challenges. I love puzzles. With these 3 pieces of information, we are going to start developing your plan of action and understand where you stand. A great tip that I love sharing with the folks when we do the one-on-ones at annual meetings or conferences is pick a friend and ask them to videotape you when you are in everyday activities, when you're passing by, when you're in a meeting, when you're working, because chances are that your information and the way that you react is exactly how you are. Sometimes we need help from others to tell us the real and the nasty truth about ourselves. So we have the first one. The managing up side has us. Then we need to talk about the organization, how the organization behaves, the persona of an organization, and we're going to talk about our boss as number 3. So we're probably thinking that the Venn diagram shows that the triple overlapping is where the sweet spot is. Not for managing up. For managing up, the overlap between the organization and your boss is what we define as the sweet spot. And the reason why is because this is the biggest unknown. This is where we want to focus so ourselves, we can adapt and react accordingly. Ready to go? Let's talk about ourselves. So when we understand ourselves, when we know who we are and what we want to do, when we understand what are our principles and our identity, who we are, what do we want to do, what are we willing to do to achieve what we want, what matters, what doesn't, those are the things that helps us define our strength, our core, our pet peeves, and the opportunities that we have. People associate opportunities as something bad. Not necessarily so. An opportunity can be something that is outside of work that if you bring it out, bring it back in, and you use it accordingly, it's a huge plus. Let me give you an example. I love puzzles. Well, how is that going to help me at work? Somebody who likes puzzle is more willing to work on difficult challenges because you feel the rush of finding the solution and putting the pieces together. That's what I want you to focus today and throughout this rest of the time. Think, where is my opportunities? Where do they lie and what can I do with them? Let's look at the understanding yourself in the triggers that we have. The first one is we need to know what stage in our career we are. If we're at an entry level, if we are going back into the market after being out for a while, if we are a PhD candidate, if I'm a mid-level manager, that defines exactly what do I want, what goals, and even what things matter and what things doesn't matter for me. That also keys into my goals and my expectations. For example, I am a mid-level manager and I work for a small pharmaceutical company, for example. What I do is I do the data keeping for them. Well, at this stage, is family, raising a small family, going to be a big thing? Probably not. Maybe my children by now, they are almost going to college. So for me, instead of figuring out how to have time to go to the children's activities, my goal is I want to make sure that I am aware and that I am still reliable and that I am still employable within a couple of years. That also brings me down to understand what my specific strengths are. What am I very uniquely qualified to do? What do I do well? And what do I still need to work on? That ties into the work in progress. What are those trigger points that I need to make sure that I have a plan of action? The part, which is I know that I have a trigger point and I do nothing to make sure that that is taken care of. Very, very important. And yes, we're going to talk about those in a little bit. So with that being said, we talked about why, we talked what, we talked what not, and we know the components. We're talking about ourselves. Hey, let's talk about the organization. The organization is a lot of fun to talk about because most people with managing and even organizational conversations, they talk about the boss or the supervisory level, the powers that be versus an employee. We are introducing a conversation about the organization, and it is key because of number one. Organizations have a culture. They have a way. They almost exist as a persona. People don't operate in a vacuum. We are employed at certain places because we fit. Even though organizations change and evolve, gas prices go up, go down, financials, things change, we stay within and we can assume that we are still a good fit as we were the day that we were employed. That is a commonality between you and your boss. Your boss was also employed at the same organization, which means that your boss was or is a good fit, which means you two already share something. The organization has a persona that is developed by the mission, by a message, and by a vision. And if these informations are either confirmed or contradicted by the company's behavior inside and outside. Let's do an example. We can assume a startup is a nimble, more horizontal than vertical organization, and you might expect people to have to pull long hours and step up much more than usual. Now, is the organization assuming that and they are okay with saying that? Or are they selling themselves as an organization where people just do, there's an extreme work-life balance and you just clock in at 8 and leave at 5? Well, why does that matter? It's critical because what we want to make sure is that we are in an environment that is congruent. When there is a lack of congruency, frustration kicks in and often burnout. Burnout is not just because you're working a lot. There's more than working that is in burnout. Why does this matter? It also matters because the way that an organization handles conflict, which would happen if you have a situation of incongruencies for a long time, that same way that they handle conflict trickles down. You don't tend to stay in a place where you just don't fit. If they handle conflict straightforward and have a transparent attitude, you know that your boss will either have to adapt to that or eventually they will have to transition out. So this was one of my favorites. it is quite key. Now that we understand myself, my work in progress, and my triggers, now that I know how the organization behaves, and we're on the watch out for those key ingredients regarding what happens when there's conflict, let's talk about your boss. So why and how do we talk about a boss? Number one, please, please, please don't stalk. Don't become the creepy person stalking your boss and finding out what they do during the weekends. It's better when you find out just by happenstance, because there's a shared conversation by the water cooler or because at a party that comes about. You do know that on LinkedIn, we do have one of my partners in the business. He does a great analysis of your online presence, and you might want to check up with us on LinkedIn. It's a fantastic webinar, and it tells you exactly all these key tools and tips where you can see where you stand and even where your boss is, for example, online reputation stands. But the first thing we want to know is we want to know background. That involves, obviously, where they went to school, where they were born, things like that, that we just find out of a conversation with the boss or from the grapevine. But more importantly, we never leave the things that make us from our childhood, from where we were raised in back. We carry them with us. So that is a key component to understanding why your boss would react to some things a different or a similar way than to ours. A communication style tells us exactly what is the way that they prefer information to be transferred back and forth. This is key because it kicks out frustration. And the third one is, what was your boss hired to do? Well, why does it matter? Because if your boss was hired to do A and was eventually transferred to do something completely different, it's probably because this business unit is no longer viable or because your boss had a challenge in this area. This is good to know because we're going to talk about complementing your boss in areas that he or she needs help. Now, what makes your boss unique? And this is good because that way you can tailor your communication, your approach, and even the things that you speak about or you talk about according to what this person is. And then what do we do with all this information? Boom, we overlap it. We make sure that we find out where does it intersect. Do you guys remember when we were talking about that sweet spot? That's exactly what we're talking about. So now that we know what we're doing, why are we talking about it, what it's not, who am I, where the organization stands, and I know what to be on the lookout for our boss, let's talk about communication. Communication is such a big topic. Everybody loves to talk about it. Get it? But it makes sense because this is the key component into having even a nonverbal system that just makes us click with people. Have you ever met somebody that even before you talk with them, something just doesn't work? Or somebody that you keep working with them, but you just never do this? That is communication. Setting aside the nonverbal aspect, and by the way, we have like killer webinar and a workshop about body language that you have to check in. Go to LinkedIn so that we can help you with that. In this segment, we're going to focus on the communication styles. This one, the system that we're using is the DISC, right? And it's just talking about the dominant, the influencer, the steady, or the conscientious. This is nothing new, but why this matters is because we understand, number one, that there is not 100% person that is 100% dominant. That's a good thing. We have hues of each one. So why do I need to know this? I already know what I am because, again, we're going to find the overlap. Let's figure out, what is your boss? What does your boss like to do? Is your boss the dominant type? Or is your boss more an influencer? Do you consider yourself to be more of a conscientious type? Is your boss more in the steady arena? What are these things? What are these characteristics that you can point out? I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes because I want you to write down what you consider yourself. And this is very, very first thing. I want you to think, if you're an influencer, are you more of the outgoing, the enthusiastic, not necessarily the party person, but you just have a knack to seeing things in a great positive outwards way? Or are you more of the steady type? You want to have some time to be in the background, relax, you cooperate, but you want your space. Are you more the dominant? You are the alpha wherever you go. You have an opinion, and by golly, people are going to hear it. But you're also very, very responsible for the things you say. And unfortunately, you have trouble sharing a bit of the control. Which one are you? Once you have finished writing this down, I want to see if you can share it with us. Carrie, can we pull up some of these folks' answers? Can they share it with us?
If they put it into the Q&A, then it can go up there.
Perfect, perfect. So what I want to see is, hey, let's do something, Carrie. Can we do the first giveaway from this one? I want to hear what the combinations are. As in, I'm an influencer and my boss is a dominant. I love hearing about this one.
Okay, if everybody wants to put their answers into the Q&A, we'll wait for that.
And I'm seeing some fantastic questions. Thank you, everybody. So who do we have? Do we have any influencers in the room? And do we have any folks that are paired, an influencer with a conscientious? That is a great combination. You will help your boss definitely go through the social capital issues. And your boss will probably help you stay grounded. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Carlos. Oh, I love that. Arvin, how are you? Oh, steady with the dominant. Whoa, you guys are awesome. Okay, and Bo, you are steady and your boss is an influencer. Wow, that is great, because your boss is the outgoing type and you'd rather stay in the background. This is fantastic. Okay, I am going to pick, let me see, Marian Whitman. Marian Whitman is a steady and boss is an influencer. Hey, Carrie, can we connect with Marian so that she's going to get the resume one? Marian, congratulations. Yay! You get to have your resume completely checked, and we have a big team that takes care of that. So you just got a review of your resume to make sure that it goes to the top whenever you have to post it. Congratulations. I love it. Conscientious with the dominant. Oh, you are down to business. Fantastic, guys. I love this. I really love this. Perfect. So now let's see. We know how do we communicate. We know the differences in the styles, and we know that our body language also says a lot. We know that if my boss is, for example, a dominant and I am an influencer, the worst thing you can do is in a meeting either correct them publicly or take away the limelight when they are presenting. Please don't ever do that. It doesn't end well. And if you do have more questions about this, I know this is a topic that people love. Connect again with us on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to talk about you guys. And we do frequently webinars and sessions, just live sessions on Facebook and on LinkedIn about this topic. It's fascinating. I get why people love this so much. So we know this. How about we talk about bosses? So types of bosses, and what I'm using here is I'm using Goldman's version. Goldman did a fantastic work, Daniel Goldman, about how to work with leadership styles. And we're going to take his overview, the 6 different styles. The first one is the visionary. The visionary is, you know it. You can have it a lot at the C-suite level, directorship level. They can see the big picture. If this was a boat, they are way at the back of the boat because they can see even bigger than everybody else. They are inspiring, they're empathetic. However, because they see the big picture, they can get lost when you ask for details. So what do? Make sure that whenever you get instructions from your boss, write it down and do a recap. Hey, Alex, just to make sure I understood what you wanted me to do, is this what you need? And give them a little bit of details of how to get from A to B. The coach is a little bit different in the sense that the coach is invested in you as a person. They thrive seeing that you're growing, that you're maturing, and you're getting much more comfortable with it. They're motivating, they're inspiring. However, sometimes they can get lost in the process. And we've seen cases where when we've done some assessment for some companies, coaches get a little bit upset when their proteges move on to other roles. The affiliative is, let's talk about the heart of the organization. Their social capital is huge. They know everybody. They connect with everybody. They live to have an empathetic relationship. They're very trusting. However, it goes in ebbs and flows. If things are good, if people like them, things are great. If some kind of conflict comes through, it can sour the whole day the department goes. That's what we call mercurial. So we just need to be aware that when these things fall or go up, that we do not get caught in the fray. The Democratic, I think, is the one that works more with the team. They absolutely want to trust their team, and they've spent a lot of time working with the team to ensure that everybody understands what they're supposed to do and how to do it. They're 100% collaborative. But because they want everybody's opinion on every project, sometimes it can get stuck. The committee hasn't decided, so a wonderful project never launches. The commander is 180 degrees opposite. They're called dictatorial or direct, and it's because they know what they want and they know how they want it. Remember in the communication styles? Okay, let's talk about here the dominant. They know what they want and they know what they want it. They will tell you, they will give you instructions, and they expect you to follow through. Sometimes they're considered to be a bit rigid, and to give them another perspective on how to do things can be a challenge. The last one is what I call the Bear Grylls of all the bosses. This is the he or she that goes where no man has gone before. This person wants to trend, wants to go ahead, wants to open trenches and make a path for others to follow. That means that they're pretty demanding. That means that they're very direct, high-strung, high stamina, but sometimes that makes it really hard to follow. And you can find yourself just being exhausted after a while of working with somebody with this. The good thing is you can tell them that you can be part of one segment of what they're doing. And they are, most of the time, they're very, very understanding. So now that we know the types of bosses, and now that we understand what in what are the communication styles, we are ready to do what we call the sweet spot. We're ready to find that 3 intersectings. So here, I'm going to ask you to do again on the Q&A, if you can please write down one commonality that you have with your boss and with the organization. This is the first sweet spot. So think, I am social. The company does a lot of work outside the community. And my boss also likes to interact with others. What is our commonality? Social. We have a social aspect. So, Carrie, can they write down on the Q&A?
Absolutely. They can put it in there.
Perfect. So if you guys don't mind, can you please let us know, where do you stand? Oh, drive for results. Perfect. I love that. I love that. Now, what other things, Arvind, what does your company do? Very good. Opposites. Okay. Time orientation. That is a good one. Very good. Very good. Great. So as you guys trickle down in the intents of our time, both visionaries. I love that, John. You guys have a ton of fun. I'm a visionary myself, so I know we can dream where nobody can go. Forward thinking, yes, very, very important, especially in times like these. You need to go fast. Great job, Mario. Very good. Very good. Now, as we keep working around this, what do we do when we have our plan directed, when we know what the tips are? Well, we're ready to draft our plan of action. How do we do a plan of action? Number 1, and you're going to see that we've already done some of these. We want to understand the landscape. We want to understand Where do we stand? Who is working? Who is working with us? What stage am I in my career? What are my goals? What are the company's goals? Are they congruent? And so forth. The second one is we want to map and find the sweet spots and opportunities. We just did that. Mario, Aravind, you guys already have that in work. But we can absolutely do a deep dive and make sure that we have this mapped out much more to a deeper degree. I would suggest that you do the three, the commonalities, the strengths, and absolutely what are the work in progress or what are the complements. The company is not socially oriented, but my social capital is huge. This is a complement. I can help the organization, not just my boss, to improve in an area that I happen to be very good at. Step out. When we talk about step out, is not staying with the idea, I'm just going to do a lot of tactical stuff and keep outside of the fray. Go out and have conversations with your boss or with your supervisors that are beyond work, and do active listening. Active listening is not shooting questions and waiting for an answer. If you already have an answer for the question you made, you're not listening. Number 4 is the show your loyalty. As a boss, one of the key things that I want to know is that my team has my back, and I can see that and I can feel it. Even when I don't see them doing it, a word comes back that that person has my back. And eventually, when positions of authority come forward, I know that that person can do it because that person will behave the same way with a team that we entrust to them. Quarterback is a very American term, and I will explain it, but it just refers to when you hear something that your boss will need help, be there for them so that they can offer a solution and they don't receive a platter filled with problems, which makes sure that you keep them in the loop with what matters. Let me give you an example. A C-suite does not need to know the details of why a problem happened. They need a bulletin of why it happened. But you know what? They need to know what the hidden story is. What is the strategy behind it? Whereas if you're working with a team lead, the team lead needs to know the details so that they can see why it happened and how they can fix them. Think about what really matters to them. The most important thing, or if you take something from this webinar today, is learn to handle the 2 C's. The what again? Conflict and criticism. You have to be very comfortable with addressing conflict the minute that it sprouts up. If you let it go on, it festers and grows. And yes, we do have some other material that we can share with you, and even you can go on our Facebook Live, and we talk about conflict and difficult conversations so that we can teach you how to do this. Criticism is even more important because criticism is how do you stop being reactive to what you can perceive as a negative comment, and how are you able to cool your jets before you spout something. Let me tell you something. As a boss, when I step forward to tell one of my employees that they need to improve in something, it's because I care. When I don't care, I don't even bother. So when you get criticism from somebody, especially a higher up, they care. Take that as a compliment. And frankly, start saying thank you. And the last one is appreciate. You want to appreciate and make sure that when you address your boss, you tell them how you can help, how they can have some influence in your life, and what experiences can help you to do things a better way. Now, I wanted to take a couple of seconds to talk about diversity, because diversity for me is well, as you can see, it's very important. Diversity is not only about talking about race, ethnicity, and all these things that makes us unique. Diversity is also about understanding that we can be put in a box by the traits that make us unique, even if we are not aware. This is what stereotyping is all about. Stereotyping is making assumptions about a person based on that person's gender, age, culture, religion, you name it. It's not right. It's not fair. It happens. Stereotyping and managing up instances is one of those pitfalls that we want to be extremely aware of. The bubbly blonde, the technologically challenged baby boomer, men don't cry, on and on and on. chances are that we've been stereotyped before without even knowing. Plot twist, we stereotype too. We assume our baby boomer boss is technologically challenged, or that they hate, they're allergic to change. The danger with these seemingly innocuous thoughts is that it almost limits us in the kind of conversations, in the common commonalities and complement areas we could have with this other person. Then we find out that two other people are engaging in our boss with something that we could totally be part of. The key here is awareness that people could see us as a stereotype, but more importantly, that we are not stereotyping others. Now, after we've talked about this, let's go to the meat. Let's talk about the nightmares in the corner office. So I have 4 types of bosses because in all the literature and in all the sessions that we work, I haven't seen people talking about these a lot. The first one is the unavailable, remote, is not there, is disengaged. Well, inject yourself into their routines and just give them the flow of what you're doing. The mean boss, somebody who's just mean, right down, nothing can be done to help them. In those cases, if you have to stay there, make sure that you de-escalate every time they approach you, because probably you don't want to fly off the handle every time. The nouveau boss is completely different. They just got promoted yesterday, or they're new to the industry. They don't know what they don't know. In this case, be very aware and make sure that you support, that you coach, that you almost have a teaching experience with this person. The Wolf of Wall Street is very interesting because this is the wild card. They are absolute alphas. They're going to go for the kill. If you have the stomach and the stamina, by all means, go for it. But make sure you document every single thing. The attorney me is coming out. You will thank me later. So one of the dangerous leadership characteristics, and you absolutely will get this afterwards, we're talking about absenteeism, optimism, the micromanager, the overcritical that can't get something nice to say to you, or the rigid ones. We can share some of the traits of how to handle this on our LinkedIn. But be assured that whenever you have any of these traits, that you have a plan to attack it. The worst happened. You, as an influencer, went and corrected your dominant boss in a meeting. That's bad. Or worse, you decided that as a dominant, your boss is an influencer, social butterfly, he doesn't know what he's doing, so I'm going to jump over him and go directly to my director, to his boss, to tell him how things are done. Don't ever do that. It doesn't end well. So what do? Very simple. Be honest. Own your mistake and verbalize it. Apologize if needed or if it's possible. Explain very clearly what your containment plan or how you're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. Follow through. This is a time thing. And be patient, because throughout this time, you are earning your stripes. Your boss is upset, so you have to build trust again. And finally, move on. Move on. Forgive. If you've been forgiven, move on. Your perception dictates how you interact with your boss. If you have been forgiven, act like it and absolutely move on. So the last tips that we have that we talked at the beginning, they're very simple. We're going to talk about what do we need to remember at the end of today. Number one, identify what you were hired to do. If you find your time is scattered among things that is not in your description, then go back to the basics or ask your boss, does my job description need to change? This is great because very few people do it, and this is wasted time on both sides. Once you know, commit. Do your job always the very best you can do. Know yourself and use it to your advantage. Make sure you know those work in progress trigger points are handled, and I have a plan ahead of time. When somebody criticizes me, it kills me. Then make sure that you have a good place to land. Make sure at the end that you have discipline and manage yourself into excellence. This is key because we always want to make sure that we are consistent. So this has been a great session. There's so much to talk about this, and I hope that you have enjoyed. This is with the words that you have in your plan of action. You should be able now to keep on working on that one and use it as a living document. Carrie, do we have a couple of minutes for some Q&A?
Yes, we still have a little bit of time if people would like to write in and ask a few questions of Elsa.
And I am here. Oh, I love it. Hey, Patrick, I love your comment. I hate to say this, but believe it or not, I am extremely close to baby boomers by age. I just have the Dorian Gray effect. So, hey, I'm part of them. I love it. Thank you for that. That was really funny. I appreciate it. So any other questions? I see some commonalities in people that work with students. Great job, Aravind. You go.
There's just some notes here. Thank you very much. Very professional.
Thank you, Drew. That's a great name. I love your name. Very, very good. Now, before, yes, it might be Gallo. Gallo, it might be in some states, institutions, they are bureaucratic. Yes, excellent comment. Yes. And, Gallo, let's connect on LinkedIn because I can tell you, I have a whole book because I've lived a long time in countries that are extremely bureaucratic. Let's connect. LinkedIn. I have my LinkedIn at the end. Patrick, you were saying that in my Facebook, yes, again, on my Facebook, and we're going to have that at the last slide, you can connect with us and ask us, and we can chat about that. We also have regular Facebook Live sessions where we just pick a topic and we talk about lots of things. Read out the questions you answer. Cannot see them. I'm not sure I understand. Martin, could you rephrase it? I would hate to miss this. How do you suggest working with a new upper manager who has no buy-in? Awesome question. Probably this person got promoted and the staff wasn't consulted. They don't have to, but they weren't consulted, and that was a bad move. If you are the new upper management, earn your stripes. And to earn your stripes, it's a very thin line, but it most of the time just means make sure you understand what your team is going through and verbalize it a lot. You know what's something key? Be appreciative, verbally appreciative, and make sure that they see and you get into the habit of praising your team's work as a whole. Be their champion. That's the way that you're going to get the respect. You're earning the respect. That is a fantastic question. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you, Elsa. Oh, Vasily, you are amazing too. You're amazing. They came from outside. Okay. If you answer a question, it would be helpful to know. Oh, I'm sorry. I understand, Martin. Read the question before I go on. Yes. Thank you. Great information. Thank you, Elsa. Oh, thank you, John. Connect with us on Facebook. And we have Facebook here. You can just go on. Oh, it seems like a little bit dark. But the name of the group is the M&E Group. We are more than happy to always connect with our friends, share this information. By all means, if you also want to connect with us, we share what we are reading or our list of. This is great articles to look for. We love working with you guys. Eric, Scott, you are amazing beyond words. Thank you so much. I know you guys are so busy, crazy traveling. And Carrie, thank you so much for quarterbacking this session. This has been so much fun. And as usual, we thrive in knowing that people are better. You have a tool. And from now on, you can go outside and do something positive and make a big change in your world. Thank you again. Thank you, Mike, on the support team. And is there anything else I can do for you?
Elsa, I just want to say thank you for a great presentation. And this was a wonderful discussion on the subject of managing up. So Elsa shared for us a lot of great insights that I hope you'll all be able to use in your professional careers. Our next webinar is going to be on networking the wire. That's going to be presented by Michael Paul, co-founder of the M&E Group. We hope you'll join us for that webinar. I'd also like to take this moment to remind everyone who has not yet renewed their membership that it's time to renew for 2020. So you'll be able to get all of the great benefits you're currently receiving with your IEEE Computer Society membership. Once again, I'd like to thank Elsa for her great presentation and everybody for attending today's webinar. And we hope to see you at all of our future webinars. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.